hero complex. And it's interesting because this applies, typically we associate the hero with men, the masculine energy, but this can apply to women. And it's rethinking pity or feeling sorry for people, rescuing and sacrifice. So we'll be exploring tonight the pitfalls of pity, rescuing, fixing, self-sacrifice in all kinds of relationships, whether it's work, whether it's business. And typically when it comes to females, you might hear it more not being the hero, but being the rescuer. So if you identify as someone who tends to be the rescuer, tends to be the fixer, tends to be the martyr, or tends to be the hero or the knight in shining armor, let your ears perk up and follow me, all right? And if you just came on, make sure that you're muted. Okay, so let's dive into this here, pity. What is pity? You know, that's the official term. Really, when I think of it as feeling sorry for other people, viewing others. And when we feel sorry for someone, we're typically in this mode of behaving that like they are helpless, lesser, incapacitated, without resources. So that's that pity energy, that feeling sorry for someone energy. And I think whoever just came on needs to mute their mute themselves, if you would. And hold on just a second. I'm going to stop this share for a minute. Okay, there we go. All right, let me go back to screen. All right. Okay, so we're talking about the fixer. That's taking responsibility for solving other people's problems. And so if you identify with any of these, feel free to say, yes, that's me in the chat. If you're the person that tends to feel sorry for people, if you tend to be the fixer, that can be your role in the family growing up. The rescuer, stepping in to save others from difficult situations, oftentimes without them asking for you to rescue or asking them to fix. And then the martyr is like the real shadow side of that. And that's when you're sacrificing your own needs excessively for the sake of others, putting aside your own needs excessively to a fault or at your own expense. Now, we all will do that from time to time, but the martyr, if you play the role of the fixer, the rescuer, or the martyr, it means that's a role for you. It means you do it on a regular basis versus in an arbitrary situation. And while these situations or these behaviors can be well-intentioned, it can definitely have negative impacts for you and for others. It can create unhealthy dependencies, and we're going to go into all of that tonight. So why do we engage in these behaviors with people? Why do we feel sorry for people? Why do we try to be the fixer, the rescuer, the hero? Well, part of it is we have good intentions. We're genuinely trying to help others. We think that's supporting others. And let me be clear, not all situations where you step in to help someone would be considered toxic, unhealthy, or unproductive, okay? So you'll have to use your own discernment on that, because I don't think there's necessarily a rule. But again, if it's a perpetual pattern for you, or it's a perpetual pattern for the other person, to need to be rescued, to need to have their problems fixed, to need to have someone come in and be the knight in shining armor, then that's where things can become unhealthy for you and for that person. So other reasons why we might do this, we want to feel in control. We don't like to see other people out of control. So we're basically kind of managing their problems. And typically this would happen in a household. So I'm going to take control of the situation so that I minimize the chaos. A lot of people who need control, if you're one of these people, it can become really like it's not about them. It's about your need to have order, your need for things to go well, your need to avoid uncertainty. The other reason that will engage in being the fixer, the rescuer, the hero, is to seek approval, whether it's from that person. I see this dynamic quite a bit with an elderly parent, that I was just working with someone who, mom is always in distress, always has a drama. A lot of times it's with other family members. And so there was this feeling with my client that if she didn't step in and help mom out every time she has a drama, that she would not be approved of, that she would be looked down upon as a unloving daughter. And that's the kind of dynamics that can happen. Also, for many people, if they've done this long enough, played the fixer, play the rescuer, it's part of your identity. So meaning if I was to take that away from you and tell you, you can't be the fixer, the rescuer, or the hero anymore, you might go into a deep depression because you feel needed, you feel valuable through those perpetual behaviors. Okay. And again, we're talking about something that's perpetual, consistent, ongoing, not a one-off situation. I've mentioned before the highly sensitive person. If you're not familiar, you may want to go back and watch my previous podcasts on this, but the highly sensitive person is a genetic trait, sensory processing sensitivity, meaning just encapsulated here that you have a brain, male or female, that you have a nervous system, a central nervous that's more sensitive to the environment, to energy, to people's emotions. There are other characteristics that are involved with being an HSP. You can also Google that term, highly sensitive person. And if you look up Dr. Elaine Aron, any of her work, you can read about this. But one of the reasons that HSPs often fall into caretaking and rescuing and fixing roles is because they like to control the energy and environment. So if everyone in the house is happy and I'm an HSP, which I am, I feel better. So if I can keep the peace in the home, we do it to avoid conflict. So it's all about making sure everyone feels good so that I feel peaceful and calm. That HSP wants to avoid conflict, wants to feel emotionally calm, wants other people to feel happy, because if you feel happy, I feel happy, right? So if you are an HSP, this is something to consider. Are you in these roles, energy draining roles, I will say, because and why I do say that is because a lot of the times, if you are playing these roles, you understand that it's ongoing, it's relentless, and the truth is you can be doing your best to avoid conflict, and you have someone in your life who just seeks drama, and then this is kind of just an energy suck for you. Okay, so there are some top beliefs that perpetuate these behaviors. And what I mean by that is you can't become a fixer ongoing, a rescuer or a hero and play that role at your own expense unless you have some deep-seated beliefs that are locking you into that behavior. Okay, so many people, I'm in Charleston, I'm in the South. This is very common here. I'm not saying anything about Christianity, but many people that I've worked with in this area, the Bible interpretation is pity towards others is what a good Christian does. That if you're a good Christian, you feel sorry for people. And then thus the reaction to that is tithing, donating your time and efforts to others. But the truth is, you don't have to feel sorry for people to take those actions. But feeling sorry for them is cultivated, at least in the South, as I've lived in it over the years. Another belief: rescuing others makes me feel important. That goes back to identity, that I feel important because I have a role. I have a role amongst my friends. I have a role in my family. I have a role as the other term I didn't put on there, but it's just coming to me now, is like, I put out the fires, right? If you're the person who puts out the fires in your life, you are doing that rescuing, and it may be the role that you take, and you're thinking to yourself, I don't want to be playing that role. But what you really got to do is take a really deep dive into looking at yourself and what's the payoff or the benefit to that. So rescuing others can give me purpose. Feeling sorry for others makes me a good person. The opposite is lacking pity means I'm uncaring. And that was a really challenging one for me. And the first time I was aware of it, as I was extracting myself from being sucked in to other people's dramas, which was very energy draining for me because I am an HSP. I am a highly sensitive person. And I'll never forget where and when it happened. I was on a cruise ship. And that's emotional soup to begin with, guys. If you are an HSP, probably some of you would never even set foot on a cruise ship. And I donate my time for a nonprofit that sends breast cancer survivors on trips. And these women are raw emotionally. They've been through so much. Many of them have PTSD. They have lowered emotional resilience. And what oftentimes ends up happening is that people get into clashes about things. Or upset when things don't go right. So if you're one of those people that needs control, and traveling will really trigger a lot of people because something always goes wrong, typically when you're traveling, especially overseas or out of the country. And we're sitting at the table one night, the people who donate their time, the volunteers, we had our own table at dinner. And one of the survivors comes up and she's complaining that she wants her room to be moved. She wants to move out. She doesn't want to be in the room that she's sharing. And it was her friend she was sharing the room with, but they got into this huge fight. And she's talking to the lady who runs the whole organization. And I'm watching every single volunteer, how they're reacting to this woman basically throwing a tantrum because she wants to be moved out of her room. She wants to be moved right then. She was practically crying. We're sitting in the middle of dinner, and I'm seeing that the lady who runs it is just sitting there nodding. Another person, she acts like she's going to cry. Another one's like thrashing around. Like, everyone's completely uncomfortable with this person's emotional outburst. And I'm sitting there doing my mental mojo to like have what I call healthy detachment. And healthy detachment is a technique that's really helped me. So when I see someone in distress, I observe it, but I'm very mentally aware of separation, conscious detachment, healthy detachment. And so in my mind, it's like, okay, that storm, emotional storm, is going on over there, but I don't have to dip my toe into it to help to rescue or anything. I really don't have to feel what this person is feeling emotionally to take right action. And I don't have to feel sorry for her either. She could have come up after dinner. She didn't need to do this in the middle of the dinner. And so after she left, one of the other ladies looked at me and she said, Rebecca, I was staring at you the whole time. And I said, oh, okay. And she said, what were you doing? And that was the first time I did it. And it really triggered me into feeling like, oh my God, do I look uncaring? Do I look like I lack compassion? But I was being the stoic, observing, not attaching into it. And certainly not that I wasn't caring, just that I was practicing that healthy detachment. So the risks of the hero complex, the risks of being the fixer ongoing, the risks of being the rescuer and the person who puts the fires out in your social groups or in your work situations over and over again, in your family, is that you may create codependency. And in this type of scenario, I think of it as people beginning to rely on you to fix their mood, to make them happy, to solve their problems, to rescue them. And then they depend on you to do that. And you get into this role of feeling responsible for other people's happiness, feeling responsible for their unhappiness. I've seen many relationships where typically I see it more and I'm just observing, I'm not saying it's good or bad, right or wrong, but where people will push away a healthy person, not unknowingly push that person away because they're burdening that person, whether they know it or not, with their happiness by asking them to put the fire out, going to them with all their problems. And I don't believe in that. I don't believe that your partner, your romantic partner, or anyone else in your life should be your constant go-to for your trials and tribulations. And many people, if they're healthy, they'll step away from that. If they're unconscious, they'll sabotage the relationship to be able to extract themselves. So I don't know if you've ever sabotaged the relationship because you felt this unhealthy burdening of someone else, like basically telling you what you were doing or not doing was making them happy or unhappy. And so it's healthy, but it's unconscious to step away from that. The other thing is to stay in it and then just feel progressively heavy, progressively unhappy, progressively maybe that you never make this person happy or they can never be happy no matter what you do for them. So it's really this twisted, unhealthy thing that will destroy the light and the joy and the happiness and the flow in a relationship if you get caught up in these dynamics. As a caregiver, it can cause burnout. In relationships, it can cause burnout because you become depleted from prioritizing someone else's needs by always trying to help them solve the problems. And it just definitely creates these unhealthy dynamics and that are typically exhausting. Okay, guys, I do not know who Adam Phillips is, but I liked this quote. The desire to rescue is often the desire to avoid the unbearable. I would word that as the desire to rescue others is often the desire to avoid pain, to avoid them suffering, which is pain, to avoid me feeling pain because I feel their pain, to avoid me feeling the unbearable, the pain, because I will suffer along with that person. So that is kind of the codependence of it, or the shadow side of why we rescue oftentimes, is to keep other people from avoiding pain and also to keep ourselves from avoiding it or from experiencing it. But the truth is that really doesn't work. but somehow we believe that it works, or it might work for a short time, but if there's, again, a consistent pattern, it won't do it. So negative impacts, going more into this dependency cycle, resentment buildup, self-neglect, energy loss, burnout. You're giving to others constantly, and then your bucket is empty. For myself, I'll talk about, as if you're a coach, I know many of you in this group are health coaches, maybe life coaches, leadership coaches. I probably don't have this as much, but we'll talk about, it in relation to the professional side of it as we progress here. The other thing, lack of skill development. So if you're always taking care of other people and fixing it for them, then on some level, you may be preventing them from being able to step up, learn, have the opportunity to grow, have the opportunity to have failure and grow from that. I mean, we all can say that we've had failures and grown from them. So why is it then, if we know that about ourselves, that we can be so hooked into not wanting to see our kids suffer or not wanting to see our kids fail? So this is a term that I only heard about a few years ago. It's called compassion fatigue. And compassion fatigue involves emotional and physical exhaustion that leads to a diminished ability to empathize or feel compassion for others. It means you just fatigued that muscle of feeling compassionate for so long that you become numb, that you just become callous to it all from that prolonged exposure. And you don't want that either. And that's not what we'll be talking about today. And a lot of that is because you don't have these mental boundaries in place and you don't have the beliefs that support you in being okay with not fixing, not rescuing, not being the hero. So why these behaviors may seem beneficial at first: they provide somebody with immediate relief. You might get praised for, coming to the rescue of mom when she has another drama. You might have that friend that tells you, thank you so much. You're such an angel. You might feel personal gratification for having done it. And again, there's nothing wrong with doing these things if it is not at the expense of your health, your well-being, your financial stability, or your relationships or your work. So I'll say that again. It's only toxic if it's at the expense of your health, which would be your energy, your well-being, be your mental, to me, your mental and emotional well-being, your finances. So if you're giving, some way that people rescue is money, money, money. And then if it's costing you, then it is an expense. And then also if it's costing you time, focus on your job. I've met people before who are constantly in this battle of rescuing, and at home they've got drama that they're, trying to do whack-a-mole with, and then they go to work and they can't focus. They don't have the energy and the focus and the clarity because they got all this other stuff siphoning off their energy. Again, we've talked about this, but I'm saying things again and reinforcing, but it gives you a sense of control, and our self-worth can be tied to that role. Okay, so here's where I want to get to something that I have found that's really, really helped me to shift. By understanding, I want you guys to understand that when you play these parts for people, when you play the rescuer, the hero, the knight in shining armor, the martyr, the fixer, and this is where my work in the subconscious mind comes into play. Our behaviors give a message to people. And so if you're constantly rescuing someone or just feeling sorry for them, what you're saying unconsciously, unspoken, can be one or several of these things. You're stuck, you're powerless. Actually, I put that one on there twice. You don't have the inner resources. You aren't smart enough. The situation is bad. The situation makes you a victim. You are a victim. So I want to talk about this. So, and I'll give some examples of, my daughter came home when she was in middle school, and she's like, she had been telling me on and off for years. She had this one friend that was her bestie when she started in kindergarten. And then bestie started dumping her every time a new girl moved to the neighborhood. And it was very hurtful for my daughter. And at first I step in and I try to fix it and talk to the other mom and try to resolve it. And that mom didn't really care. And I really did feel helpless, and I would try to give her advice. And then, I stopped because I understood that I couldn't fix it for my daughter. And that as long as I was feeling sorry for her, then I was holding my daughter in powerlessness. I was holding her in victim energy. And I want to pause on that one, guys, because these three are so, so huge. If you are feeling sorry for someone, what you're saying to that person unconsciously can be, you're a victim, you're stuck, you're powerless, you're not smart enough to figure it out for yourself, you're not good enough or worthy enough to have something better or different. So I asked her one day, she was complaining about what was happening, and I asked her a question. And that's a great thing to do with people instead of feeling sorry for them. You can still just pour out love from your heart. I was so compassionate to my daughter. And I'll go over the technique in a later slide, but I asked her the question, what are you going to do? And she said, I don't know. And I said, well, what do you want in a friend instead? And she listed off all these things. And I said, sounds like a good list. Those are good qualities to have in a friend. And within 2 months, she had a new set of friends. And she's had those friends since then. And that was, 10 years ago. So when we're giving advice to someone continually, I believe oftentimes this is so important, the unspoken message. Think about your kids. If you're constantly telling them how to solve their problems, telling them what to do, they come to you and oftentimes they're venting. They don't necessarily want advice, but you've got to be artful about empowering them. And if you're always finding the solution, daddy's always stepping in to rescue. I see that with very loving fathers. I'm going to come in and be my daughter's hero and save the day. But then you don't teach her to believe in herself. You don't teach her to problem solve. You don't teach her how to step into her own power. And then oftentimes too, when we feel sorry for someone, we're just immediately labeling the situation as bad. So think about a situation, if you've had one of these, where a friend comes to you and they say, oh, my partner just broke up with me, or my partner cheated on me. And the first thing in your mind is, oh God, thank goodness. I'm so glad this happened, because they were so bad for each other, right? But you go, oh my gosh, I am so sorry. This is terrible. Is it? Is it terrible? It's like when I was going through divorce, people would say, I'm so sorry. And I would say, no, don't feel sorry for me. This is not bad. This is good. This is what I want. This is healthy. This is right. So when we feel bad for people, we're labeling a situation as bad, which is so limiting. That is counterproductive to any kind of growth mindset. Growth mindset is a concept they use often in education, but instead it's like, okay, how can I look at this situation as an opportunity to grow? How can I look at this situation to identify what I want differently in my next relationship? How can I look at this situation, talk about this situation, support this person in a way that is not aligning them with victim mentality, that is not aligning them with powerlessness, that is not supporting, this is a huge one, this is what I should change this one to, the blame game. How many of you are involved with somebody who blames? They blame other people, they blame situations. So they're in this stuck, powerless situation. And then you come in and you want to fix it because maybe you're just tired of hearing the complaining, or maybe you're kind of buying into they're a victim. But I promise you that you're not doing them any favors by seeing them as a victim or letting them get away with perpetual blame game. And even if it gets you some negative pushback, if you are asked your advice or if you are prompted to say something, well, maybe, it's like the Pollyanna stuff that nobody wants to hear, maybe in the end, this will be a good thing. Maybe, trying to find the silver lining and all of that kind of good stuff. If you always play the hero, others can always play a victim. And so when you step back from that, you give them the opportunity to grow and change and play a different role. So I was looking into philosophies and what philosophies out there support going beyond this hero complex. Stoicism. I'm really into Stoicism now. It doesn't mean you're stoic in the sense of you don't care and you don't feel. It's about self-responsibility, self-control. Instead of trying to control external circumstances or rescuing others, it's about how I think, how I believe, how I react. And really, it's sovereignty. It's really the whole idea of Stoicism is that you're a sovereign being. And that's my interpretation of it. And then also acknowledging that other people are a sovereign being. And what does that mean? I've said that before in other podcasts, is if you're a sovereign being, you are in charge of your happiness. You are in charge of your unhappiness. How? The story that you tell yourself about the situation. So I'm going to feel unhappy if I believe that my son has been wronged because he should have won the trophy, or he should have won the spelling bee or whatever. But that's a story. Everything, whether we feel happy, unhappy, whether someone else feels happy or unhappy, is a story. And I'll go back to the guy I was coaching yesterday, and he was saying that this person that he'd been dating, and he told her that he wasn't really feeling that they were a match, and she kept texting him, and he felt bad about having to tell her again, draw a boundary, and he's learning to draw boundaries. And I said, well, if she's unhappy with your decision that you don't feel that you two are a match and you don't want to keep dating, that's her choice. That's her story. If you're acting with integrity, if you're being kind, if you're acting within your values, you're being upfront and honest with this person, and they choose to be unhappy about you not selecting them, that's them. That's their story, and they can choose that story or they can choose a different story. Existentialism identifies individual responsibility and freedom of choice. So rather than treating people as helpless victims in need of rescue, a lot of times, many people that are in tough, tight situations, they didn't get there overnight. They got there from a series of unhealthy choices or counterproductive choices. And we can feel compassionate for others. Everyone's here learning, growing in their own timing and in their own way. But each one of us has freedom of choice in what we do and when we do it. Humanistic psychology advocates for a supportive approach thinking of empowering people. Can you empower someone without fixing? Maybe, if they ask for your advice. Buddhism teaches compassion without attachment. So my coaching client yesterday, he says, does that mean I never help people? I said, no. He said, does that mean I never give advice if I feel like I can give advice? I said, no. But what it does mean is that you're not attached to the outcome. And that's where the Buddhism comes in. If you can help someone and give from the heart and give lovingly with kindness and not at your own expense, do it. But the key is to not be attached to if it fixes, if it resolves it. You're giving them love, you're giving them kindness and compassion, maybe giving them advice or helping them, but don't put the pressure on yourself for that to produce a result. Because that can keep people hooked in. Systems theory and healthy boundaries. We haven't really talked about that much tonight yet, but having healthy boundaries, being able to say no and not feeling bad or guilty about it. If someone wants you to rescue them and you know it's not healthy for you, you know it's not healthy for them, you might need to work on being able to say no comfortably and be at peace with that. So the thing that came to me in meditation when I was working on this, and I want to put this in the context of my working with people. I work with people all the time that come in with really horrible things that have happened to them. Just this month, a woman whose husband committed suicide, a woman who we tracked back her menstruation symptoms that have been causing her problems for years back to a molestation when she was 6 years old. These are really heavy situations, traumas that people are going back to. And guys, I'm not saying I don't have compassion for them, but I don't feel sorry for them, because I believe that by feeling sorry for someone, you hold them in the what is. And what I mean by that is, if I feel sorry for these people, I hold them in the stuckness. I hold them in victim energy. I hold them in powerless consciousness. So what replaces that? Love, compassion, hope, positivity, a belief, a solid, rock solid belief from my heart that this person can ascend and transcend whatever traumas they've had. And here's the thing too, with people that come to you constantly wanting you to solve their problems or fix or rescue, you know, most of the time it's not manipulative. They're not doing that to manipulate you. They are doing it because they do not believe themselves to be powerful. They do not believe themselves to be able to fix their own problems. But if I keep fixing it for them outside of my office, in my office, people are paying me to co-create solutions for them. They're paying me to help them clear those limiting beliefs of powerlessness and victim. They're helping me clear the trauma, and they want to acquire beliefs that empower them. But outside the office, I don't give advice, guys, because most of the time people aren't asking for advice. Oftentimes, they're really just wanting to vent. And I can limit the amount of time, because I am an HSP, that I allow that. But I can just love people where they're at. And that's what I want to say to you. Don't get into patterns where you want to fix it because it feels uncomfortable to you. Love them where they're at. And if they ask you for advice, give it. You can give the advice, and I suggest you only give it if they ask. I'm telling you, 9 times out of 10 people will not ask you for advice, even when they're venting, even when they're complaining. They just want to be heard, they want to be acknowledged, and they want to be loved. So replace rescuing with acknowledgement, like I just said. So someone says, oh, I'm having this bad day. I got into it with my boss again at work and I hate my job. And, I have a friend of mine who's like this, and I swear I've heard this story like 10 times. And I'll say, oh, you sound really frustrated. So the first thing you do when someone's complaining about a problem, instead of fixing, rescuing, all being the hero and trying to solve the problem, which you can risk reinforcing their powerlessness. I want to warn you on that. It's not always your best gift to someone to fix or rescue, because you may be reinforcing their victim mentality, their powerlessness. Instead, you sound frustrated. You sound angry. You sound sad. Pause. When you pause, you give people time to say, yeah, I am sad, I am frustrated, blah, 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 whatever. Active listening. So I hear you saying that your boss always does this, and so you're saying he doesn't acknowledge you. You're just, that active listening is just, I think it's called reflective listening, where you're reflecting back to people. Boundary setting. So establishing clear boundaries. So letting people take responsibility for their actions, their decisions. You don't need to give your own opinion on it. That was stupid. Why'd you do that? That was dumb. I told you to do this. Just actively listen, have compassionate detachment so you can be compassionate and supportive without resolving the problem or fixing it. So it's in a sense like that Avatar movie, I see you. I see where you are. I see that you're struggling. I hear you. I acknowledge what you're going through. I hear what you're saying. And oftentimes that is enough. If you think about little kids, sometimes they fall, they scratch their arm, they come over, they cry. You look at it and you go, oh, let me kiss that boo-boo. And they go on, right? Like, we just oftentimes want to know that we're seen and heard and loved. So you can also, replace, we'll go back to that, replace fixing the problem with reflection. So again, reflecting on what's going on, having them talk about it. If you want to have them talk about it, if you don't want to have them talk about it, you can sometimes ask for what the lesson is, prompt them to gain the insight from the situation, to gain insight from the lesson, asking questions instead of giving advice, guys. This is huge, because when you ask someone a question, you're giving the impression that you think they can figure it out, that they have the inner resources, knowledge, etc., to figure it out. Like, what do you, and my go-to is, what are you going to do? And you don't want to say it patronizing. What are you going to do about it? Say, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? I wonder what you're going to do. I wonder how you're going to solve this. Now, you might get anger thrown at you. Like, there's nothing I can do. I'm stuck. I'm powerless. They argue for their limitations. That's okay. The power is already the helping. I call it the sacred communication. So when I ask someone, what are you going to do? Now, I don't do this in my office, because if they're in my office, they're paying me for advice. They want the advice. It's a completely different dynamic. But outside of it, 9 times out of 10, people aren't asking for your advice, especially, these people, they've complained. You've tried to fix it. You've offered advice. You've offered solutions. They never take your advice. They never take your solution, or they end up back in the same situation over and over again. Those people, 100%, you do not give advice to, because that's just an energy suck for you. And they're thriving off of, or in the shadow side of it, feeding off of your energy, feeding off of that attention, feeding off of that rescue energy, feeding off the love that you're giving them. So you ask the question, what are you going to do? It goes right into the subconscious mind. It begins to work in the background, guys. It's like you saying, where did I put that book I need for my meeting tomorrow? And right away you're like, I don't know. And then 10 minutes later, it pops into your head. Everything you've seen, done, it's all in there. When you ask someone a question, it stimulates the problem solving. And you may be the only person in that person's life giving off the energy with that question of, I believe in you, you have the internal resources to figure this out. So it's really powerful to do that. Believing others can transcend their own troubles is a gift. It's a gift to them because you, again, may be the only person doing that in their life if they've had a pattern of victim, powerless, trouble after trouble. Don't underestimate the power of holding space for others to figure out their own problems. So I never really understood this whole concept of, oh, the woo-woo, I'm holding space for you. And when I was working on this presentation today, it's like, okay, this is what holding space means to me. It means I'm holding a space for you to figure it out. I'm holding space that you'll transcend. I'm holding space that this will get resolved. I'm holding space that you're going to get happier and healthier. I'm holding a vision for you that maybe you can't even hold for yourself. And that's where it gets beautiful and profound. I realized on one level when people come to work with me, that they oftentimes, not everyone, but many of them feel so stuck. They don't believe they can resolve their problem. They don't believe in themselves. And so on some really profound spiritual level, the energy exchange is, I'm going to hold space for you. I'm going to believe in you until you can believe in yourself. I'm going to hold space that it could be something mundane. I'm going to hold space for you being a non-smoker until you can step into that identity yourself. I'm going to hold space that you can be this person who operates from self-love instead of self-loathing until you can hold that mindset yourself. And that is such a beautiful thing that I get to do all the time, but you don't have to just get paid to do it. You can do it with others, and it takes so much less energy, guys, so much less energy than fixing, is to hold space for others, believe in their capabilities, whether they've shown them before or not, believe that they're going to figure it out. And I think I've told this story before, but when my son was little, he was really, he was diagnosed with oppositional defiance disorder. He got in trouble quite a bit. Essentially, he was trying to solve his problems through hitting his sister, through misbehaving in school, being oppositional, arguing, talking back, and all that. And then everyone around him, mom, I'm not mom, I'm the mom, grandmoms, dad, uncles, aunts, all were seeing this child as the bad seed, gonna get worse. And I would put him to bed at night, and I would hold a prayer in my mind. I release you to your highest good. I see you getting happier and healthier. I release you to your highest good. I see you getting happier and healthier, happier and healthier. And that's whatever that means to this child. It wasn't me going, I see him becoming a doctor or a lawyer or whatever. And I just kept seeing him rise above the inner turmoil. I kept seeing him rise above whatever it was that I didn't know about, even though I knew a lot of what it was about, but just whatever it took for him to get to a place in his life where he was happier and healthier, because I knew once that happened, these behavior problems would subside. And sure enough, they did. So that's a real gift to people, is to believe that they can figure it out. So replace feeling sorry for someone with love. This one is seeing the situation through a different lens. So that could be to put a positive spin on it for someone. It could be just love. I know you're going through a tough time right now, and I'm here, and I love you, and you've got my love. And sometimes that's just all people want to hear from you. I love you. I care about you. You're going to get through this. the lens is sometimes with people helping them to, get the takeaway. Okay. So my daughter had a situation, she's in art school, and she handed me these puppets that she worked on for weeks. And she goes to deliver the puppets to the people. They were doing a short film with puppets. And they said, leave it at our front door at this apartment in North Charleston, which is like not a good area. Well, the puppets got stolen. She was beside herself with anguish. And just this was going to go on her resume for film. And it just was a knife in my heart. I could just see how just discouraged and despondent she was with what happened, right? And so I jumped in a little too soon. And for fair warning, guys, like, I didn't pause long enough on just acknowledging that she was really suffering and that this was just a horrible thing to happen, or a horrible feeling thing to happen. And, after all the work that she had put in, I should have just stayed in that acknowledgement on day one. But I went right to, well, what does this tell you about what you would do next time? Because they wanted her to make them again and they weren't paying her anything. And she's like, Mom, I know what you do for a living, but it's a little too soon for that. Okay, yeah. But then the next day she's like, okay, well, and we talked about it, and where she went with it was drawing boundaries with her time. And if she was going to do something like that again, she was going to ask to get paid for it. So in the end, she gained some moxie, some clarity on boundaries in her work situation. And so that's looking through a different lens. Be curious. What I mean by that is, don't jump to a conclusion when someone is in distress that it's bad. Replace that energy of, oh, this is bad. Okay, I lost my job. Oh, this is bad. Oh, I didn't get that job I wanted. This is bad. My partner broke up with me. This is bad. Replace that with curiosity. And so when someone's attacking you, you did this, you did that, I'm sorry you feel that way. You can say, or I can hear how distressed you are. But lean in with this energy of curiosity. You don't have to say anything, but what I'll do is when someone's venting, I lean in, and the energy I'm giving is openness, curiousness, love. And in my mind, I'm asking this question. I wonder what this person is supposed to learn from this. I wonder. So if I do that, you'll see and register a different energy from me versus, oh, so sorry. And versus, so believing in other people, like I said. The statue is for being a little stoic, witnessing other people's suffering, but not feeling compelled to have to fix it, to take away the suffering. So, my eternal love and gratitude to each of you. For more information about working with me, check out my website at RebeccaTaylorShaw.com. Putting on this last screen, if you are interested, you can direct message me, and I do one-to-one coaching. What I've found works best with my clients, the clients that I'm working with now that are seeing the best results, is they'll do one coaching with me a month plus a custom hypnosis recording to pair with what mindset or behavior they're wanting to up level to, or 2 coaching sessions a month plus a custom recording monthly. So if you're interested in that, let me know. And I hope that was helpful to you guys. And I'm going to show you something. Yeah, I guess we're at the end of our time. So Uh, all right. Have a great week and go off and shine your light. Thank you. Thanks, guys. And be the light. Let me tell you that it is so much more powerful to walk into a situation and instead of trying to do the heavy lifting. The meditation I saw was don't put the ladder down in the muck. Stay up here and offer love, offer compassion, just care, curiosity, and then people will raise to your vibration in that moment. Sometimes right away, sometimes later, sometimes never if they've got their own lessons, their own timing, and their own way. But don't put that judgment on they need to be in a different place. They need to be happier or they need to be over this or whatever. Just love them where they're at and they'll figure it out with or without your help in their own timing and in their own way, because we're each a soul here to learn our lessons and we don't know the master plan for other people. So I'll leave you with that. I love to you all. Have a great week. Bye.